All right, Alan, and we're live.
All right, thank you, Mia. Welcome everybody to today's free webinar provided to you by Junior Achievement of New Jersey. At Junior Achievement, we believe in empowering the New Jersey community to being their best selves, but also their best financial selves, and how to stay financially independent and responsible. Today, we have a special session featuring guest speakers within the finance industry, and we're so excited to have mentors from Kearny Bank joining us this afternoon for a panel discussion around careers, education, and making wise financial decisions. Now, before we get into today's content, let's go over some housekeeping. This video platform that we are using allows us to communicate through the chat box, and you'll see that on the right-hand side of your screen. And just a heads up, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available for future use. At this point, let's get comfortable using the chat box, say hello to us, and tell us who you are and where you're from and what school you go to. And we'll just type that in the chat box to make sure everything is functioning correctly. Just a small introduction as your name, where you're joining us from. Mia, are you seeing the chat box? Okay, I see some people are typing. Okay, that's working fine. All right, so on today's agenda, we'll be having a panel discussion with Kearny Bank, followed by a Q&A, and then conclude today's session at 2 p.m. All right, a little bit about me is I was a JA student back in middle school. In high school, I volunteered my time as a high school hero, and now I'm a freshman at Villanova University. I'm a business major pursuing a degree in management information systems and human resource management. And here's just a financial thought of the day. This is something to keep in mind as you go through today's session. And this is a quote by Colin Powell, which says, "A dream doesn't become reality through magic. It takes sweat, determination, and hard work." Joining us today from Kearny Bank are Kim, Nancy, Joseph, Cash, and Stephen. And we'll begin our panel questions. So if you guys could please introduce yourself, tell us your current role at Kearny Bank, and tell us a fun fact about yourself. And sorry, Nancy, you're muted. Still can't hear your audio. Still can't hear your audio. Okay, so we'll just, Cash, can you please start us off? And it's just introducing yourself, letting us know your current role at Kearny Bank, and a fun fact about yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, so my name is Kashif Pervez. I am a Vice President, Business Relationship Officer for Kearny Bank, covering 4 markets in New Jersey and 1 market in New York, which is Staten Island. A fun fact about myself. This is tricky. I don't know what people your age consider fun, but let's say that I never wanted or decided or ever thought of becoming a banker. When I was younger, I wanted to be an athlete. Like in my country where I grew up, there's the famous sports is cricket. So I played that and I wanted to be a cricketer. And when I was in college, I wanted to be a pilot. But none of that materialized. And when I finished my master's in international business and management from university in London, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And the fun fact is that I was born here in the United States, but I was 3 years old when my parents moved back to Pakistan. So I grew up there, and I never visited United States until after my graduation. And I just came here with 2 suitcases, $300, and a degree in my bag.
Wow, that's a powerful story. Thank you for sharing.
The rest is history. And your quote just fits right. I never started my career as a vice president. It took time, sweat, determination, and hard work.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And here we have Stephen. Stephen, do you mind introducing yourself? What's your current role at Kearny Bank? And fun fact about yourself.
Sure, sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Stephen Sibby. I occupy a compliance analyst role here at Kearny Bank. And fun fact about myself is that I was the first person in my family to go to college and beyond. So I was the first one. That's the fun fact.
Thank you, thank you. We love to see our first gen here. Um, Following that, we have Joseph. Do you mind introducing yourself, letting us know your role at Kearny Bank, and a fun fact about yourself?
Hi, I'm Joseph Logan. I'm a mortgage closer at the bank, meaning I prepare all the final documents that are signed whenever a mortgage is closed, purchases or refinances. A fun fact about myself is I was a nerd before everybody thought it was cool. So when I was in second grade, I was reading those comics and the science fiction. And now that everybody else likes it, I ask, where was everybody back then?
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And following that, we have Nancy. Just introduce yourself, current role at Kearny Bank, and a fun fact about yourself.
Sure. My name is Nancy Makoviak. I work with Steve and Kim, who will introduce herself momentarily. And I'm known internally as Nancy Mac because we all report to another Nancy M. So if anybody refers to me as Mac, that's why. I'm also a compliance officer at Kearny Bank. And a fun fact was that in high school and college, I struggled with mathematics courses and economics courses, and I swore I'd never have a job with numbers. And I wound up in financial services for 30 years. So go figure, you never really know.
Thank you for sharing. And lastly, oh, sorry.
I share the same trait as Nancy. I never got good grades in mathematics myself.
Yeah, so following that, we have Kim. Kim, can you please introduce yourself? Let us know your current role at Kearny Bank, and a fun fact about yourself.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Hunt, and I'm a Vice President and Regulatory Compliance Officer for Kearny Bank. And a fun fact about me is I myself am an alumni of the Junior Achievement organization. And the fun fact about that is it is truly like it can be anything it could be different things for everyone. And at the time that I was there, we actually we came up with an idea, built a product, went through the whole the process of creating the product and actually selling the product. So, and that was clothes hangers for the closet. So the fun fact about me is that I'm a former member of the Junior Achievement organization.
Thank you, thank you. And the following question, we just have you guys sharing your job story. I know some of you touched up a little bit on that, but here we're just asking, what do you do to earn a living, which is your basic job description, why you chose to do it, and what do you love about your work? And to start us off, if you don't mind, Kim, again.
Okay, so again, I work here at Kearny Bank, so I'm a banker in the regulatory compliance space. I like it. I didn't choose it. This career chose me. And when I say that, That is that I just happened to um, get a first-time job as a teller, and I just never left the banking industry. I just, all through college, everything, I just stayed. And so there was a natural progression to where I am today. And I just choose to do it because I have a long career in doing it, and it doesn't make any sense to me now to change paths. Although you can, it's never too late. I'm just very comfortable in this space.
Thank you for sharing. And following that, we have Nancy, just letting us know what do you do to earn a living, your job description, why you chose to do it, and what do you love about your work?
Well, I myself with Kim and Steve, we have the job of basically keeping the bank out of trouble. And what I mean by that is every bank has a regulator, and we're charged by the FDIC, which is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is what protects people in banking to make sure that their money is in a stable place. So we keep the bank out of trouble by looking at all the different rules and regulations and making sure that all of our policies and procedures and what we do meet all that criteria. So my favorite part about the job is I interact, and we all three of us interact with anybody and everybody at the bank at any given time, from a part-time teller all the way up to the president of the bank and anybody in between. So you never know when you got a phone call coming in, who's going to be calling you and what they need to help to be helped with. And it really used all my prior experiences. I did not start out in banking. I actually got out of college and I was a car salesman. I sold new and used cars and trucks for a long time. So those on the ground and boots and on the ground experiences really helped me understand what our front line goes through with meeting the general public. And then I eventually worked into the back office and understood why we do and how we do what we do. So that really helped me round out and do the job I do now.
Sounds great. And if you don't mind me asking, what made you progress from car salesman to the finance industry? Like how was that journey for you?
I had decided I was working next to people with all levels of education, and I put myself through school. I paid for all of my own schooling, and I decided I wanted to do something more with the degree I earned. I actually went and became a temp and had lots of different jobs. And kind of like Kim, the company I wound up with found me as a temp job, and that's how I wound up in financial services, a large corporation called the CIT Group, and then got into credit and worked my way up.
Sounds great. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
And following that, we have Joseph. If you don't mind just letting us know your job story, your job description, why you chose to do it, and what do you love about your work?
So I started out, I'm a mortgage closer. So like I said, I prepare the documents. Most of that includes following up with the customer, checking their employment, making sure all the taxes have been paid up to date, updating homeowners insurance, little things like that. And then I send the closing package to the title company who does the actual closing. I chose this job more out of necessity than anything else. When I first got out of college, I wanted to be a teacher. And I got out of college back in the days when Murphy, for some of you who don't know, not Murphy, Christie gutted the education system back 10, 15 years ago. I didn't have anything else to do. A friend recommended that I get into this, and I tell you, I've loved it ever since. Um, I love the fact that, like other people have said here, I never liked math, never enjoyed math. But the math that I have to do here, it makes sense. And when you get to that final conclusion, it's like a little sugar rush. And that's one of the things that I've always liked about this type of math and this work is that it's simple, it makes sense, and there's that enjoyment after you get that conclusion. Not to mention, there's the people who are like, yo, this is going to save me so much money. Thank you so much for helping me through this and answering customers' questions. Their appreciation is a big part of it.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, you definitely see the gratitude these customers have from your advice in the finance industry. Here we have Cash, do you mind going next?
So, as I mentioned before, that I never planned on becoming a banker. The story goes like this: that when I moved here, I went to a party and I met a big shot of Citibank, and we just started joking around and all that stuff. And he says, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Listen, I just got here." The first question he says, "Are you legal?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And he says, "How come?" So I told him the story. I was born here. He says, "What about a career in banking?" And he says, "Can you help me?" And he says, "Sure." So long story short, I met like 5 people, and in like the span of 1 week, and those were the times when there was no fast emails. I'm talking 1999, and no text messaging and things like that. And I got a package at home where I was staying. They said, "We are offering you a job." And it was the time when Citibank was going through a merger with Travelers Group. So they hired me, but they didn't know what the position they wanted to offer me. So that means that that guy had the cloud. So I started as a personal banker, and then I went through those securities licenses and training, and I became a financial advisor, and then I became a branch manager, and then I became a business development officer, and this is where I think my most of my potential comes out. The reason being is that I'm an outgoing person. I like meeting people, and I try helping people either save money, make money, or do something or provide a solution which will make them better, like efficient and effective. So, and in this field, I meet, I help businesses. So what my job is that I uh, identify a prospect like a business, and then I introduce myself and Kearny Bank, and then it takes time. You plant the seeds and it grows, and then one day it will bear fruit. So, and ultimately, people always try to improve as well. Like, oh, so I bank with this bank and they are charging me this. So if you provide them a solution where they can save money, and then you provide them excellent client service, they will move. And then like the best gift is that you ask that person, "Hey, can you refer me to someone?" And then you meet another one. So it goes one second, and then it multiplies. Like one becomes two, two becomes four, four becomes eight. Nobody brings the book from school. So you work in the field, and then you build your book of business. And what I love about this job is that you hear and experience so many success stories.
Or it seems Cash is having some connection.
Where they are. I haven't experienced any of that client yet, but I do have so many of those kind of stories when somebody started from their home and now they're running a multi-million-dollar business. And I feel like I'm part of their story.
Thank you. Definitely. Definitely what sticks out about your story is the power of networking. And
Yep.
that's very, very crucial to understand, especially in a business environment. It all depends on who you know, and that's when opportunities may arise. And it all just starts out with a conversation that you have with a particular person.
Exactly. In my line of business, obviously it's 50% networking and 50% referral business, because gathering a testimonial. Hey, Ellen, you're happy? Would you write me an email and that paper, and then you put it in a folder, and then you show it to your clients? Just talk to Ellen. He's more than happy to tell me what kind of a banker I am. And then for Kearny Bank, I'm showing you what I can do for you. So it cements the progress gradually, but like it takes time. And as soon as I finish this, I gotta get ready, and I gotta run to a Chamber of Commerce networking. I'm glad that we are meeting again, because working from home in my line wasn't working very well. So I'm always, even during the pandemic, I was ready to go on the road or anything. We had so much issues with when people needed those monies, PPP, and this is where we won. Small banks like Kearny, they're the ones who help small businesses. Walk into a big bank right now, I guarantee you, I challenge you actually, walk into a Chase Bank, Citibank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and pretend that you're a business owner and ask for a loan. Say you have been in business for 2 years, this is that. the very first thing they said, oh, we are not lending for these type of industries right now. So this is where we win. We provided those companies with access to that capital, which was government was flowing, so that they can be helped. They could keep their employees. They could pay their bills. They could pay their rent. And I won so much, knock wood, that I don't want this pandemic to be here. I want it to be over, but it did taught me a lot of lessons, as long as those business owners.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Cash. And lastly, for this question, we have Stephen. Stephen, do you
Hi.
mind sharing?
Well, yeah, I just have to on what Nancy Makoviak said before. I'm part of that team. So our job basically is to make sure that we as a bank stay compliant according to the rules and regulations that the government and the regulatory agencies put in place. I choose to do the work because I feel comfortable in that role with the skills that I have developed up to this point. What I especially love about the work is that I have an opportunity to suggest change and innovation, which is based upon my previous experience. So I feel like that pretty much sums it up.
Thank you, Stephen. And our next question we have, what did you want to be when you were in middle school and high school, and how does that connect to where you are today? And Stephen, if you don't mind just continuing with that question.
Yeah, sure. You know, when I first heard the question, I said to myself, well, you know, who really knows what they want to do, especially at that point in their life. Plus, at that point in my life, like pretty much, I guess anybody else, it kind of changed like the weather. You know, one day I might have wanted to do something, then a week later it would be like, hey, I think I could do this. I mean, I was really into sports, but I think at some point everybody figures it out. You know, I'm not going to be a pro. I'm not going to be a pro athlete. So once that's done, you know, you move on. But the one consistent thing I think is that I wanted to try to achieve something unique. So in every kind of experience, whether it was educational or work, I tried to achieve something unique. And that's pretty much the thing that was motivating me.
Yeah, that's great motivation. It's tough to decide as early as high school. What do you want to decide to pursue in life? And it's mainly because you have so many interests, so many hobbies. You don't really know. You don't have that experience of going in the real world. But thank you for sharing. Following that, for the same question, we have Kim.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ditto what Steve said. At that age, middle school, I didn't really have an idea of, where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. Um, in high school, in the later years of high school, I started to bring it into focus. When I took part in what they call back then it was called the co-op program, where they took certain students and they let them work a week outside of school, and then you go to school the next week. I don't know if it's still called the co-op program now. And it was there that I decided that I wanted to do some type of business, and I wanted to do some type of my own business. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I still do want to be an entrepreneur. So this is close to it. I mean, I'm in business. I have a business degree. I went to college to get a business degree. I've taken a lot of continuing education as far as business in my career. And so it's not all lost, but I still want to be an entrepreneur one day.
Thank you. I definitely resonate with that statement about the co-op. In my high school, we had something similar called a work study program. And there I had the opportunity to work human resource with Panasonic Corporation as a high school senior. And it definitely has given me a sense of direction of what fields I wanted to pursue, mainly because I saw it and I worked within those fields proactively. So definitely, if for any viewers right now, if your high school has anything similar like co-ops or work study, definitely participate in those. It offers a great experience as to what you want to pursue post high school. And next we have Joe. Joe, if you don't mind answering, what did you want to be when you were in middle school and high school, and how does that connect to where you are today?
So in middle school, I knew exactly what I wanted to be when I was in middle school. I wanted to be a military general. Specifically, I wanted to work with logistics, getting supplies around and everything like that. I was just so focused on the military. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And then I hit high school and realized that that probably wasn't the best path for me. About halfway through high school, I realized I really wanted to be a teacher. I even had a couple free study periods where some of the elementary school kids and teachers that I knew, they let me pop into their class and take an hour and teach a lesson to their kids. And it was really rewarding to see the kids learn something and ask questions. And that feeling is something that I still take with me. That's why when I went into college, I really wanted to be a teacher. It didn't really give me any connection because as I went and finished college, like I said earlier, there really wasn't a lot in the education market available. But what does connect for me is the fact that I get to help people understand things. Most of you have probably never seen a closing disclosure. It's a very supposed to be a very simple document, but there's a lot of confusing concepts about it, and people have questions about it. For me, I love when they ask the questions and then I explain it to them, and they walk away with that feeling like, oh, okay, now I understand what I'm actually signing off on, what I'm actually going to be paying all this money to here, there, and the other thing. And for me, that's my connection from high school is that the idea that I like to educate people, I like to help people. It's one of the reasons why I also coach. It's just when the kids come out and they get better than they were in the beginning of the year, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
Thank you, Joe, for sharing. Our next question we have, explain what your educational path looked like. Did your education guide you to the career you're currently in, or did things shift along the way? And to start us off, Kim.
So my educational path was not straight from high school to college in 4 years and done. It was from high school to college, full time, then sometimes part time because I had to take a job, so part time evening, and then full time. So it was kind of all over the place. That didn't matter. What was important is that I finished. So, and I actually finished in my allotted time, the 4 years. So the path is not always straight. Sometimes there's twists and turns, and that's what I had. But that's fine as long as I finished. And yes, I do have a business degree, and yes, it did lead me to where I am today. So yes.
Thank you. And following that, we have Nancy. Just your educational path. Sorry, you're muted, Nancy.
My education kicks off on me.
Yeah, it's fine. We can hear you now. Oh, sorry, we can't hear you now.
It keeps still.
Okay, that's good. Okay, we'll just move on to the next person and we'll come back to you, Nancy. So, Joseph, can you just explain what your educational path looked like?
My educational path looked like a very crooked line constantly. When I got out of high school, like a lot of people, didn't have a lot of money. I went to community college. Best decision I ever made going to community college because it gives you a nice introduction to just about everything without the 4 year college price tag. But when I got into college, I made some mistakes and I got a couple of semesters erased on me. I got myself back on track and graduated. I was about 2, 3 years behind the rest of my classmates, but I pushed my way through. And like Kim said, I also took part-time job to help pay for college education. So there's a long time that I was part-time work, and it's a long process. And my education in and of itself, studying history classes mostly because I wanted to be a history teacher. But the one thing that I did learn is perseverance. You take a class, and if you mess something up or something like that, just keep working at it and work your way through it. It took me a lot longer than my friends and my other classmates to graduate, but I got there. And when I got into the workforce, yeah, I'm behind. I was behind everybody else and my classmates in getting into the workforce. But you do your job, you work hard, perseverance will help and get you there.
Yes, thank you. Nancy, do we have the audio? Yes, Nancy, you
Yes,
wanna?
can you hear me?
Yes, perfect now.
Okay. I took a very traditional path in my education. I always knew I wanted to go in business. I graduated a business school. It was called Trenton State. It's now called College of New Jersey. But as I mentioned before, I wound up going a very non-traditional path into the work. And because it was the car business and it was a long time ago, I wound up being the only female in amongst many men in a male-dominated field. So I learned to be very agile and quick, and I went to a school that was a co-ed school. So even though I took a traditional path in my schooling, my education was traditional. The jobs and the expertise I wound up with was not traditional because I did wind up in financial services, and I usually would find myself being the only female at the table. But gave me a distinct advantage because I was easily recognizable. I didn't look like another suit and tie sitting there. So I think that even though the traditional path of education worked, the non-traditional path I took working really worked out and gave me a lot of opportunities. And to talk about the networking, that gave me so many opportunities to network, and I still network today, and I help others network. It's really, really critical to just say hi to the person next to you in line and strike up that conversation. Don't be shy.
Definitely. You never know the opportunities that may arise.
Mhm.
Following that is Cash. Cash, do you mind sharing with us?
Same thing, the education background. So as I said, I grew up in Pakistan. If anybody doesn't know, it's right next to India. And when I was growing up, there were only three professions where parents pushed you to go to, whether it was becoming a doctor, engineering, or an accountant. And I went to med school for about 4 months, but I decided when I had to dissect a frog and the blood was all over and I couldn't do it right, I said, no, this is not for me. So I convinced my father and I said, listen, you are an engineer, but you run this factory, which you inherited from your father. So what's the point? And you did an MBA. So I think I want to study business. Because to be very frank, I do not like preset answers like 1+1, 2, A+B=C. I like to argue. So, like when you study management, marketing, there is no answer in a book. You have to convince the teacher. You learn and then you apply, and then you can have a constructive conversation and criticism. So I started doing well in business school, and then for my master's, even though I was born here and I wanted to come to America, and my father said, no, you have to go to England because everybody studied there. That's how I ended up in London, and I did my master's in international business and management. And that was 1998. It was Labour Party. Britain was going through some recession. I was looking for a job because I didn't want to go back home. I wanted to see what I can do on my own. You can only stay under your parents' shadow for some time, and then like when you think that you've accomplished something, you want to flex your muscles, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna find a job. And then there was this big company called Best Ways. It's the third largest wholesalers in England. And I met this Indian guy, and he said, okay, you know what? I'll give you a job. And it would be 26,000 pounds at that time. He says, but you have your job, but I want you to go to America. Bill Clinton is doing wonders, like American economy is booming. Why don't you go to US? You have the passport. People will die anything for this kind of an opportunity. So I came here. The rest is history. I told you how I ended up here. But as I said, when you study business, you're like an open book. Like you really don't know what you can do. There are things and wonders, and then I decided to go into banking. It's a nice profession. Like as Nancy said, you wake up, you wear your suit and tie, and like, here we go, let's get to work. So it gives you a good feeling, like a sense of direction in life. Like, hey, like I gotta get up in the morning, get ready, wear my suit, and get to work.
Thank you for sharing, Kaj.
Sure, you're
And
welcome.
following that, we have Stephen. Just what did your educational path consist of? What did it look like over the years?
Okay, my educational path was fairly straight. However, it wasn't fairly straight to get here where I am now. So, I mean, I went to college, got a Bachelor of Arts. I majored in history. My minor was in liberal arts. I got a master's degree in history with a focus on contemporary U.S. history. In between that time, I was also a military veteran. So, perfect background for banking, right? No, I mean, that's not exactly what I was going to go into. But the opportunity presented itself to me, and you find out that the skills that you've accumulated in the past through your education, also through your work experience, can pretty much work in a lot of different situations. So that's how I found myself here today.
Thank you for sharing. Our next question is for Nancy. How many different types of jobs have you had? Did all of them relate to your current position?
It's funny, I was thinking about that going, I have had a lot of different jobs in a lot of different areas. It didn't lead me directly to this path, but I had a lot of great mentors who were willing to give me assignments outside of what I was supposed to do beyond my job description. So having that little bit of organizational courage to be able to jump in and say, yeah, I'll try that. I don't know all the skills, but trying something a little bit different really gave me that opportunity to learn more. And anywhere you have a mentor, you have sometimes sponsors where somebody will come along and say, hey, you've got a problem, but I've got somebody who can solve it for you. And those mentors can help sponsor you to the next job. So you build all those connections and it leads you down just any kind of path you can't imagine. I would never imagine I'm sitting here today. If you would have asked me when I was the ages of everybody that's listening, could you imagine you were going to be doing that? And I got the opportunity to travel a lot. I traveled quite a bit. You just can't imagine where it's going to lead you. But if you leave yourself open to those opportunities, it really is a powerful, powerful thing.
Thank you. Thank you for that background. Our next question is, what did you learn from your first job, either positive or negative? And Cash, can you start us off with that one?
Well, the first job I ever got, or the first job in banking?
Whichever you prefer.
So I'll start with banking because my previous jobs were not like as professional as banking is. So I'll start from there. Can you repeat your question? What would you want me to correlate with my banking job?
Yes. What did you learn from your first job, either positive or negative?
The first positive thing is client is always right.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing, which negative, is that like this 5 fingers, they're not the same, so everybody's not the same. And banking solutions are not like one hat fits all. So you have to have an open mind. And for being the best banker, the first trait you have to learn is you have to be a very open listener. Just ask open-ended questions. Tell me why. So this way, like let them vent out, and then like you take notes. And this is what I learned. The better listener you are, the more successful you will be.
Thank you. And Joe, what did you learn about your first job, positive or negative? Your very first job.
Well, it was a positive, but it was a negative for me at the time. Responsibility. My very first job, something I did, I was a kid, I was 14, probably the age most of you were. I did something stupid at the job and I never took responsibility for it. They knew it was me. I thought I was being sly. They knew it was me. So at the end of the day, I should have fessed up, took responsibility for it. People are going to pay more attention to you and give you more respect if you accept responsibility for things that you've done wrong, and they will then be willing to give you the credit for the things that you've done right. And then also on the aspect of responsibility, be willing to accept more responsibility to do additional things. Just because your job description doesn't necessarily cover the tasks that you're supposed to do doesn't mean it can't do something for you. I think Nancy was saying something about that where, she was doing things outside of her job description. That's exactly what I was doing. At certain jobs, they're like, well, that's not your job description. No, but if they want me to do it and I show responsibility in doing it, maybe it becomes part of my job description. Maybe they give me a higher position. So taking responsibility for what you've done and accepting responsibility for better things that are outside what's actually in your job description. That's what I learned.
Definitely. And that mentality is definitely applicable outside of the workforce. It's just the way you carry yourself throughout life in general, just maintaining that morality within yourself. And following that, we have Kim. What did you learn about your very first job?
Well, so I'm just going to piggyback off of what Joe said about responsibility. And one of the main things that I learned earlier on in my first job is the responsibility of being there, meaning showing up and showing up on time and also being prepared. So, and though I consider those to be positive things. So showing up on time and showing up prepared, right? Prepared for whatever the responsibilities that you have for that job. Um, I don't know if there were really any negative things. It maybe as a young person, I might have viewed things as negative, meaning like if I was unable to get the scheduled lunchtime that I wanted, or I couldn't get a day off for some reason, I might have thought those to be negative things. But in the grand scheme of things, you see all these things are character builders for you going forward. And so again, like I said, the main thing, as Joe said, responsibilities is showing up on time, and being prepared.
Thank you, Kim. Our following question is, are there resources or additional information you think is important for students to know if they are interested in learning more about the type of work that you do? And to start us off, Kim.
Well, sure. If anyone is interested in learning about banking, um, apply for like an internship and work alongside other banking people and get an idea of what it's all about. It doesn't have to start at the regulatory compliance level. You can come in as a bank teller to get your foot in the door just to see what that's about. Or you might want to work in one of the back office units in check clearing or operations or anything like that. Or you might want to go to school and take some courses in business and find out what the attributes of bankings are all about. Um, there's just many ways to do it. You can ask people about it. You can, um, like I said, apply for a job or do an internship. There's many ways that you can go about finding out about information, whether or not you like banking. But there's so many facets of banking. There's not just one. It's very large. So I would tell anyone to explore the whole gambit of banking to see if they would like it and to see where they would want to be in the banking system.
Thank you, Kim. And following him, we have Nancy.
Well, I'm sure I can speak for all of us that if anybody wanted to reach out to any one of us, reach out to Junior Achievement through your school. And if you wanted to talk to one of us specifically about a job, we'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. Spend a day with one of us in our jobs. It's a little tough right now, virtual, but there's lots you can do that way. There's no one path to this job, but I'm going to give everybody a secret weapon. And not only for our job, for anything that you're looking to do. There's this thing that's called informational interviews. You can ask somebody, say, hey, do you have 10 or 15 minutes to tell me about what you do? People love to talk about themselves and how they got to where they are. So that informational interview, you can sit down and, reach out to me, reach out to anybody here, reach out to friends or neighbors, the parents of friends or neighbors, and say, hey, I know you do something in engineering. Can you tell me a little bit more? And that kind of informational interview will be a very powerful thing throughout your life. Whether you're looking for someone to, you've got a problem in your apartment and you need something fixed, or if you're looking for a new career path, stop and ask somebody who you know that already knows something about that. And then you follow it up by going, is there someone else you think I should talk to? And it keeps going on, kind of what Cash was saying. And you ask people questions, but it's also important to listen. And don't listen to answer the question, but listen for understanding. And that's a huge skill to be able to develop no matter what you do. So when you talk to those folks, listen to what they have to say, take the notes, and listen for understanding as opposed to answering a question. And I think you'll learn a lot.
Thank you, Nancy. Following Nancy, we have Joseph.
I think Nancy and Kim really covered it pretty well, but I'll add my own bit of flavor to that. For resources, definitely talk to people who you know in those fields. Like I said, Nancy said, if you want to reach out to us. But for me personally, I can tell you that when I was in a different financial institution, I would ask questions about people from different departments. What's your job like? What do you do? And I'd find out if I had an interest there. And then if I felt like if I knew that there was a position there and I liked it, that's how I would make a move to that, try to make a move to that position. So all about asking the questions. If you're looking for specific information on banking, absolutely. Like Kim said, trying to get a job at a bank, I highly recommend working in the branch. It's one of the things I never did, but the branches touch so many aspects of actual banking, what the bank has to do. Now, there's always the back office parts that the branch really doesn't touch, like auditing and stuff. But the branch has access to all those other different facets of it. Back office, obviously, for an internship is good. College classes, there's banking college classes. There's tons of resources out there. I mean, you can even look it up on YouTube. Banking is actually kind of interesting when you learn about it. And you realize that sometimes the banks, they're not the bad guy. They're actually trying to help you, but you got to obey the rules that everybody goes by. And that learning will help you understand it.
Thank you, Joseph. And Stephen, do you have any additional thoughts or advice?
Uh, you know, I mean, I agree basically with what one said. I also think that today kids have an advantage that I didn't have, and certainly I think some of my other panel members didn't have as well. You've got the internet, okay, which basically lets you reach into everything, right? Your access to information is extraordinary. I can't imagine what I might have been able to do as a younger self with access to the internet that I'm able to do now. So I would suggest that in addition to talking to people, which I think is very important, or maybe if you wanted to go into banking as a career just to get a taste for what it is, I think you need to look at all the information that's out there and available to you and really, allow yourself to get immersed in that. And I think that will help you greatly. Thank you.
Definitely, the world of possibilities is immense in our day and age with technology. And our final question for this evening is, what advice would you give your younger self? And Kim, do you mind kicking us off with that one? You're muted, Kim. Kim, you're muted.
I don't think we have time to go through all of those scenarios. But the one thing I think that I will impart today is to say, if I had to look back and I was talking to myself, is to never give up and to always believe in yourself. And people may be naysayers in life, but never mind what they're saying. Just keep going. If you have a goal, if you have a plan, make some action steps and just go for it. No matter what it is, it's not unachievable. Everything is achievable if you put the plan into effect. And so that's what I would say to myself. Just keep going. Earlier on, I talked about the entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur. That's still, somewhere in my head. So it's not over. I still might get there. Just keep going. So that's what I would say to my younger self. Keep going, keep planning, and keep reaching your goals each step, each step, each step. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Kim. That was very motivating. Following Kim, we have Nancy.
I'd say just be patient with yourself. Give yourself time. We're very much in a Twitter world and Instagram and TikTok where things happen in 30 or 50 or 45 seconds. And that's how things can happen really quickly. But also be patient with yourself. Give yourself time. Put those action steps together like Kim was talking about, but be reasonable about the time frame. You're not going to know everything quickly. There's some things you have to experience to learn. But, find those folks that you trust and speak to them. Finding a mentor doesn't have to be a formal thing. It can be an informal thing. You see a friend's father who might be sitting and doing some yard work, but there's something you want to know, approach them and say, hey, I know you're busy with yard work, but do you have a few minutes? Take the time and be patient with those answers, because I think you'll find you'll go a long way.
Thank you. Joseph, what advice would you give your younger self?
I'd give myself two quick pieces of advice. One, like I said earlier, when I was in college and it took me longer than everybody else, was perseverance. But you got a goal in mind, and Kim and Nancy said this as well. You got a goal in mind, stick to it. If you've got a plan that you're going to do something, stick to it. You'll have days that you'll fall back and you'll have days that you'll fall back far. But if you keep applying yourself, more than likely you're going to get everywhere you needed to go and everywhere you wanted to go. The second piece of advice is something Mike Rowe has said one day when he was giving one of a commencement address. And he specifically said, everybody looks for the job that they love, and they don't spend the time loving the job that they have. And to me, when I was a young kid, that would have helped on some, especially my first job, where there's got to be something about each job that you enjoy. Try to find that piece and enjoy that piece, because otherwise every day will be a chore. You're going to work. Try to enjoy every little piece of any little piece of your job, so that when you are working, you're not feeling completely miserable about it.
Thank you, Joseph. Following Joseph Cash, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Enjoy yourself. I would say that there is all the time in the world, and the stages of life. I will trade back my younger self when I was in high school or college anytime, any day, for any amount of money. Like when you were in school, you wanted to get out and you think, oh, I'm going to be independent, this or that. All these things come with responsibility. So as Nancy said, along this way, when you're enjoying yourself and having a good time in college and all this stuff, if you pick a mentor, it would really help you, because it will carve a path for you to take when you get out of college. You guys are fortunate enough that you have this fancy internet and all this stuff. The place I was growing up, I only had 4 channels to watch. Like right now you have 400 channels. You can't even decide what you want to watch. So, like the same thing. and there's no such thing as this is what I want to do. You could, like Nancy started as a car sales and then ended up being in compliance. These are day and night kind of professions, right? So same thing, like, and if you can find some sort of work experience during these times, like summer internships. I know not everybody can land an internship. My first job, which I didn't want to discuss, it was flipping burger at Burger King because I wanted to work. I didn't want to go home in summer vacations because I was just sick and tired of going there. And then you said 2 weeks later, I said, this is not for me. I can't do it. So my second job was selling clothes at an Armani store on Bond Street in London. I loved it. I love fashion. I love clothes. So it worked out fine. Then the next job I took was I was a bartender, a busboy in a nightclub in Piccadilly Circus. So, like all these things, do they match banking? No, but they all taught me something. I really can't count anything what those jobs for 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks taught me, but banking taught me, as I said, like you learn from people who are successful, what kind of traits you can pick, what is the right attitude, what is the next trend. This is how you are going to determine for yourself which field you are going to be. People study liberal arts and then they ended up being investment bankers. That has nothing to do with it, but it says that people, the corporations also sometimes look for a raw talent. It's like the ideology of looking at if the glass is half full or glass is half empty. It just depends which category you fall into. The same thing. The only thing which I want to repeat is the first time is enjoy your time. This time never comes back. Everything else money can buy.
Thank you, Kash. And Stephen, what advice would you give your younger self?
I think what I would say to my younger self is that A, you have to have a lot of patience. B, you have to be willing to try things that are out of your wheelhouse. And C, again, if I was talking to my younger self, I think I would say, try to stick with some stuff a little bit longer.
Thank you, Stephen. And this concludes today's session. Thank you to all of the panelists for sharing your stories, and thank you to all of the attendees for joining us today.